This is session B with Beverli Rhodes, and there she is there. This is the morning after the night before. Sort of has a thing to say. Yesterday we talked about this diagram. Now that was a very, very detailed diagram which we have chatted about before, and this is version 1 of it. Beverli was able to talk about versions other than that. And we did a long session yesterday. Today, the other thing that we revealed yesterday is the 20 and return program. And Beverli talked about that very importantly. And we're going to be talking about that as well again today, but we're also going to be talking about the remote viewing programs that she's doing. And on session B, which is going to be probably split into 2 or 3 parts, depending on how much time we have, because I'm speaking in Swansea later today, and I have to do a thing called get a train. Right, Beverli, we have got the 20 and return program, and there are legal reasons why you cannot use the other term.
Yes, there is.
Do you want to talk about that very briefly?
Well, I understood when I was putting together the chapter in my book about the 20 and return. It was originally called what is commonly known across the world. However, my editor came back to me and said, we cannot use that term because that has been trademarked by a specific person in America. And basically she had discovered that if you use that in either printed literature or any type of literature without asking his express permission, because it's trademarked, then we would be in a whole heap of trouble. So this is why we've changed it to 20 and return.
And using either the digits 20 or the letters 20.
Yes, or
so we can still use that.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't know. You'd need to find out yourself what's in the trademark application and what he owns.
Well, that's one way of censoring truth.
Yeah,
so I'm going to say that. This is censoring truth, people who do that, and that's not good, and I think it's a very bad thing. And censoring truth by copywriting a phrase like, I don't want to say that. So anyway, right. Let's get away from these distractions. We're now very late in the day and there's a lot of things to say. So, remote viewing. You do an awful lot of remote viewing. Could you explain all of that stuff? The reason why we just had that conversation about the 20 and return is because you've done that 3 times.
Yes.
And that involves a whole lot of stuff which we leave for later. But that was sort of mentioned in session A. So we're in session B now and time restricted. So go ahead, talk about the remote viewing issues that you are involved with.
Right, so I started the Remote Viewing Alliance, and it's called the Alliance because it aligns all different types of remote viewers across the world. They're operatives that are remote viewing in every single continent of the world, and we all talk to each other, we all work with each other, and I might add at this stage it's on a volunteer basis. Nobody handles any fee for it. The Remote Viewing Alliance does not charge at this stage, but we will be able to provide a private arm later. We're still busy all talking about this, and then later individuals will be able to send a brief to the private arm and utilize those to go and look at various remote viewing, which will include kidnapped and ransomed children and young people, as well as any other person that has gone missing. Those services are available. And we also do specifics like remote viewing Mars, like remote viewing the Black Pyramid situated up at the poles, looking at and trying to get into facilities around the world to have a co-located, which means that our essences are co-located in 2 locations. One where your body is, and the second one is out of your body, projected to coordinates. So that's where the co-location comes in. So we do all of that, but I think the greatest success that the Remote Viewing Alliance has had to date has been, over the years, working on missing children. And that is where I think we pick up the story about what's happened literally this week. is the feedback that we've got from one of the cases that we worked on about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, from a date point of view, we're talking 5th of November 2025, and could you discuss those cases in terms of public knowledge and whatever else you can say about them?
Yeah. So today being the 5th of November 2025, I had just been advised this morning that the individuals that were involved in the kidnap of a 12-year-old young girl up in the Rotherham area in the United Kingdom, we actually participated the very weekend that she was missing. We were actually engaged by her mum, and we were able to find what was happening to her and the location and what was going to happen around the situation, because there was 8 different paedophiles that were involved in this missing young girl. We then were able to assist, and we had around 15 of the remote viewers. We all got together on video camera, and we were all looking at what we were seeing with the young girl, the images of the individuals around the young girl, what was happening to the young girl who was severely injured, but more importantly, the faces of the perpetrators, the alleged perpetrators. I now know that those people are being, basically, as we speak today, they are being arrested. So I'm quite sure that very soon there's going to be a lot of information that will be hitting the mainstream media and press around a particular gang that is prevalent in the Rotherham area in the UK up north. But this particular young girl has actually been agreed to do a video testimony, and those charges are being pressed. She was taken to hospital. She was taken to safety. So as a direct result of everyone using their abilities, that young girl, age 12, was found, freed, and taken to hospital. And this is what we can do. We're all gifted. We can do this. You don't have to necessarily go through years and years and years of training. Everybody has an ability to see energies and see pictures and images in their minds. Different types, obviously, but everybody has that ability. We were all born with additional senses, and we just need to tune back into them, get reconnected, because we've actually been disconnected from our abilities for so long. We just need to get back into the swing of things and making sure that we understand vibrations and make sure we protect ourselves and go through the motions of retraining ourselves to reactivate what we already had years and years and years ago. So we've also had cases, we've been asked to work on cases in America. There was one particular case where we were working with Big Homie CC, which was the head of the extraction task force. And he has got a number of fantastic, very strong, very burly warriors. And any of the cases that are being worked on, and he is then brought in to extract the child. So in a couple of the cases that we were working on, one of those cases was in Colombia. And there was a young girl, again, that was taken, I think she was 14 when she was kidnapped, and she was taken across the border into Colombia. And we were then able to trace through the energy signatures, because the parents very kindly gave photographs, bits of clothing, and pretty much a really good dossier around this young girl. And we were able to use that successfully, not only to track her life signs, because the first thing that Big Homie CC always asks me of the group is there proof of life? Is this person still available? And that's the first thing that we do, is we check to see whether there is an energy signature for the soul in the third dimension. And that's where we start. And we all had said, yes, she's still with us, she's still alive, but these are the conditions that she's being held under. So we then went into an entire review, and each of my remote viewing group, they each specialize in something different. They each have a different capability. Some are able to move out of their bodies and go and stand with the person that has been taken, the young child or a child specifically, and say to the child, just try to be calm, we're looking for you, we are on the case, we are trying to find you. Some of them are able to do that. Others are very, very good at picking up numbers. So they can see, like, they look up and they see house number, or they can see the building number, or they can see the number of a block in a particular area. And in some cases, the numbers of the coordinates, the longitude and latitude of where that person is being held. So there's a group of those. Then we have another group of the remote viewers that are extremely accurate at looking at the toroidal field and looking at what state and condition is the victim or the kidnapped person in at that point, or the person that's been lost. What is the energy body around that person? What does that tell us? Does it tell us this person is going to shock? Does it tell us they're cold? Does it tell us they're unbelievably frightened? Does it tell us that they've closed down, shut themselves down? What does it tell us? So I have a group of those that look at, are excellent at saying where this person is, and also what does the energy mean? Has that person started shutting down? Are they so cold that they're close to expiring? This is what that group does. And the next group that I have in the Remote Viewing Alliance is a group that is able to pinpoint coordinates. So not necessarily numbers, but they can actually see on a map, almost like a Google Earth. They can pinpoint, this is the general area that this person is being held in. The next type of person after that is the person that's able to provide images. So when they're working, they take a pen and they start sketching. So they will sketch like pointy areas, like these types of long triangles being mountains, and they'll do like waves, meaning sea, or they'll do droplets, and that's meaning either rain or near water. There are those that are able to see the location terrain. So I've got different people that have different skill sets, that have honed that skill set over the last 10, 20 or 30 years, and some of them that have been working in this field as long as I have, which is in the region of about 23 years. So we have different skill sets. So what I do is I bring all of those people together under one banner, Remote Viewing Alliance, and get everybody to work together, and then we cross-match it. And we all go on the screen on a Zoom call, and we all talk about, what do you see, what do I see, what did you get, what did I get? And then all of those notes get put into a document, and that then gets sent to the team leader. So the team leader will have the code name for the person that is working on the case with me, and the code name will have all of their observations. And that then gets sent to the person that has commissioned, if you like, and asked us to help with that particular case. In some cases, we are also brought in to find remains when we know factually that there is no life force, no life signature at all for that person in 3D, or because of the duration, we know that there's no way that somebody can still be alive 200 years later. So that's a good assumption to make. And we're sometimes then brought in to cases to find human remains. So for instance, in some of the cases where you have the schools where the American Indian First Nation people were sent bodily and their hair cut and then sent almost literally to their death. In Canada, for instance, there's a lot of schools that we've been working on there. We've had 1, 2, 3 cases on that. So we've been working specifically with unusual cases, and then we've put together a very large report of everything that we found, and we've sent that to the person that's been leading that particular project, if you like, in Canada, with the state schools that dealt with the American Indian First Nation peoples. So we have a very specific methodology, and we also make sure that we have a good mixture of people with different skill sets that are working on the cases. Generally, we try to meet every Friday, but if we've just come off a case, then we take a couple of weeks off so that everybody can just re-ground themselves, stand outside, make sure that they allow those energies to go back into the ground, do their meditations, do their salt scrubs, and get all that energy because when you're working on these things, sometimes you get a granulation of energy that sticks into your toroidal field. Your chakra points sometimes become malaligned, so there's a lot of cleanup work, if you like, that you have to do after you've worked on a big case.
This is long established in American and law. A lot of the key remote viewers going back, I think Lynn Buchanan, I may have that wrong, but these are quite some time ago. So this is admissible, is it, in court, this, or is it?
I don't know whether it's been admissible in court. I think that the individuals that are now employed with the three-letter agencies across the world, because there's a lot of very talented remote viewers that are employed, I think some of the wages are in the region of $70,000 to $90,000 a year as a remote viewer, say, for instance, that even works for the CIA. And they are, I think that some of their text where they've been accurate and they've gone on site or they've accompanied one of the officers that's gone out to infiltrate a particular area or do some of the arrests. I think that perhaps some of those instances where they've gone out, they have their badge, they're bona fide, whereas individuals like myself and the group that I run, we're not any part of any service. We're not part of a secret society or a three-letter agency. So I don't know whether any of that would be admissible in a court of law. But if we have seen something, I do know that in cases where I've been on site with individuals and we'd gone to go and find a child, whatever I was doing on the helicopter before we landed, in the site that I'd pinpointed, this is when I was in South Africa, there was a national case where a young girl had been taken and kidnapped, and I'd seen her tied to a pole in the basement of a house that had been demolished. It had been demolished up to the basement area, and this person that had taken her was accessing it through the cellar hatch, and the cellar was still intact, and there was a pole in the middle of the cellar, and she had been chained to that pole. But on the top of the surface, all you saw was a house that had been demolished in a demolished site. So when I was able then to give testimony, when I disembarked the helicopter and went with the officers that were going to do the search, I was able to then add what I was seeing from the air and what I'd picked up with the young girl being chained to the pole. So that was admissible, because it was part of the active investigation at that time. I was then able to go with the officers and show them where to go in. They moved into the property, went into the basement, really dark, but then they found her exactly as I'd seen her, chained to the pole. She was then basically removed, extracted from that area, came out, was taken back into the area. The ambulance came to fetch her, and then was reunited with her parents. And I was really lucky because I was able to spend, once she was better and she was out of hospital, the parents brought her to my home in South Africa, and I spent a good few hours talking to her. And very, very kindly, she said to me, I felt something strange around me when she was, tied to the pole. A really lovely young girl, and she made it through, and the perpetrator was then arrested. I gave my testimony, the officers gave their testimony, the victim gave her testimony in a closed environment because she was under the age of 12. And this is what happens with remote viewing, is sometimes the information that you're getting, the images or the feelings or the smells or the tastes or the sounds, you don't always know what that means, but as long as you put it into the melting pot collectively, it means that all of that then provides an overall globalized picture of what is happening to the victim. And then it starts making sense for the investigating officers. And that's what I've found, working in this line for many, many, many years. There might be just one small grain, a nugget of information that you as a remote viewer receive, and that's the key to breaking the whole case. And this is what has happened when I was working with Big Homie CC on the case where the child had been taken to Colombia. And one of the key areas was that we had seen, and I can still see it so clearly, I'd seen a river with individuals going down to the river washing their clothes. And further to the side, there was a road, and there was like a warehouse or a factory or something on this area with another, like a reasonable dwelling on this side. And all of that became quite clear. Some of our other individuals had said they'd seen a taxi, they'd seen these people moving in a taxi. So we had all these seemingly unrelated items. But when we put it all together in the report, it was very clear that there was a specific area, which was sort of on the outskirts of Colombia, main city center. And that, when we were talking that through with Big Homie CC, who was the extraction team paid for by the Americans to go into that area in Colombia and go and get her out. And what then I did with him is he said to me, could you go and have a look and see what is the firepower, how many boots on the ground do they have, who is the lieutenant that's in charge of this group of young girls, and what are we walking into, so that they know when they got into the country what level of firepower they needed to take with them in order to extract these children. And that was all part of the remote viewing that we were doing. And at the time, he called and he said, can you go and have a look? We're getting ready. We want to go in, but I get a bad feeling about this. So I said, right, let me have a look. I had a look, and I was then able to tell him directly in real time while they were traveling in the vehicle what he was walking into. And I said to him, I suggest you stand down because of where all the snipers were and how much firepower they had protecting their human assets, because each of those children were being pimped out, and they were making in the region of about maybe between $1,000 to $5,000 a day by servicing all sorts of individuals here, there, and everywhere. And I also said, I suggest you go and speak to the lieutenant directly, one-to-one, negotiate a freedom settlement for this child so that you can find out how much money they would be losing as a cartel that deals with underage children for sexual activities. So do that and you'll end up having a peaceful extraction. So Big Homie very nicely decided he was going to stand down the crew and he would go and speak to the lieutenant. And I said, the lieutenant is this person, this is the seat he's going to sit in, this is what he looks like, this is what the place looks like. And if that's the person that you negotiate with, it's going to be a very successful extraction and it will go according to plan, and you probably won't even have to, you just show your firepower, but you might not even have to squeeze off a few rounds. And that is exactly what happened. He went in, negotiated with the lieutenant, got the figure, the settlement figure, came back out, went back in, phoned his main person that was running the project for extraction, told him this is how much money we need, this is what this child is worth value-wise, this is what this child brings in. They're not interested in the child, they're interested in making sure they don't lose any more money. And she makes X amount of money over the 1 month period. Give me that money, I'll take it to him, job done, we can extract the child. And that's exactly what happened. The child was paid for and extracted. And what was really lovely is that all of the various agencies that needed to be involved, including passport control, ICE, all of the others, everybody was involved with this, everybody worked together, the marshals worked together, everyone worked to get this child out. And it's an extremely successful case. That child then was repatriated back to the United States. And literally just before a key milestone celebration, she was able to see her parents and see her siblings and everyone else in the hospital, from hospital. And it was a fantastic celebration. And we were all extremely proud of the work that we had done with Big Homie CC and their team to get this child out. And this is the sort of thing that becomes worthwhile. So all of those that would like to do something to make a difference, which is a human nature. Human nature is we like to be in service. We like to be doing something that makes a difference, that makes our lives worthwhile. And that's one thing that everybody could do, is start using your gift to make a difference to children, because after all, they are our future.
That's a big deal.
It's very positive. It's nice. And because you don't know at the time, you don't know what this little bit of information you're getting. You don't know how it fits into the jigsaw puzzle. And then when I normally meet with the person that's the project lead, we then take all of that information. And the first thing we do is we do a scan of the information. And then we see what are the golden threads, all of the same information that's coming through from everybody all over the world. And that gives us this big picture. And that's when we start realizing, well, that's what's making sense. That must be the trajectory of that case, and this is what is key. And then that's how that entire picture becomes a final picture, and that's when they send the team in.
But that should also give you a, shall we say, collateral information on a number of individuals and organizations.
We've built up a lot of information over the years, and we have seen, more so the last sort of 25 years, we've seen the same core players, the same core organizations, shall we say, and we've also seen the same trajectory. This is what they do. You know, they'll go and kidnap or steal a particular group of people. So it will be either, you know, the blonde hair and the blue eyes. That's kind of changed now. It's more the red hair with the green eyes, or the red hair with the châtain or the hazel eyes. Or even worse, they will steal long black hair, very African Indian First Nation people, all types of tribes. It can be any tribe. It can be Creek, it can be Cherokee, it can be Sioux, it can be any of them. If they have that look about them, there is a very big call for children, women, and young people that are of a particular type. So literally, the finders and those that are the spotters that will go and spot different children's and different types based on whatever the fixer wants. Will say, oh, that's what we're looking for today. Have a look at the parks, have a look at the areas, have a look at the schools. Take snapshots where you can, surreptitiously, with a hidden camera. They will look and say, well, that's what it is, and this is the high value or high ticket child or young person that we are looking for. And they are very unusual types of individuals. I mean, some of them can be, you know, little ones that are sort of 3 years old and have unusual eye colors or with particular spots in their eyes. There's the very specific types. And if that child has been found, that goes straight back, the intel goes straight back to whoever it is that's put in the order for that child. And that's when the wheels start going. And we're able then to pinpoint, like we did in the Rotherham case, these 8 men that had decided to kidnap the 12-year-old and a couple of the others as well in various areas. They were basically taken to order, and we were able to focus on that and say to the parents, this is what we see, this is what it looks like, that's the property. Let's try and match the property to what we're seeing. And everybody works together in order to be able to free these children. And that's what's important, is the focus is the children, the young people, getting them back, keeping them safe. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to use our various gifts to be able to free the children.
Well, there have been a number of high-level cases in the past which involved certain eye issues and a certain young girl And the information on that, it involved certain high-level organizations in the European scenario, and it involved certain suppressed intelligence agencies obtaining the child for to order,
Yeah.
using those special markings. Does that have an extraterrestrial thread to it as to particular types of bloodlines and DNAs and genetics, which is what makes those children so valuable?
In my opinion, I think it does, purely because these children, when we tune into those children, I will say that when you tune in, that energy field or the toroidal field that's around that child, with specific traits, with a specific different types of bloodlines, and Rh negative, Rh positive, and Rh null, they are very different. And then we find that after working in these cases for so long, when we start looking at those specific types of children, that when we get the report through, because we get given pictures of the victim, pictures of photocopies, or actually photographs of the police report, a handwritten statement from the parents, and we also get all of the parents normally send us loads and loads of pickies of the child when they were younger, child just before they went, child going to school. We get all of that information sent to us, and we use that as part of the background for that particular target case. We've noticed that those children, through no fault of their own, are very different. They stand out, and they have a different energy about them. And so I think that would be very attractive, both for off-worlders, but also for those that are looking to procure a child for nefarious reasons, either sexual or one of the larger satanic type cults for some of their rituals, or to be included in the breeder program. It's very specific, and you can see that child is vibrating when you start looking for that child in the 3D area. That child is vibrating at a different vibratory level. That level of light and energy is different to other children. So I would, in my view, from what I've seen, working these cases for so long, the answer to that is yes. There could be children that have been taken to order, but taken to order from off-world, from an organization or set of beings that want that type of DNA or blood group, or whatever you might call it, energy value, which is different. And then they get taken off-world, which makes them a lot more difficult to track. There is a way to do it.
What do you mean by difficult to track? That means you can track them, and how are they tracked?
Well, because when they're taken, they have a stamp on them. So we actually we track the stamp.
And what sort of stamp is this? That shows there's an intergalactic, interplanetary, interspecies, interdimensional database of tracking where people go.
Yeah, there is. Yes, absolutely.
Well, don't have to be so sort of.
Yeah,
you just know. I mean, we're in a climate of digital ID and stuff. Bearing in mind, computer systems are accessed by ETs.
Yeah.
And anybody in this 3D world who thinks they know what they're doing with a computer are in error.
Well, yeah, me and computers, I don't touch them. I've been banned from using even a photocopier because I break it. So the tracking is, either they get tagged with a tagging tag, and then when they get back, they always know where they are because they get chipped. Or alternatively, what we've seen over the last probably about 15, 20 years, there is a skin manipulation where it just looks a bit strange. It doesn't come up on any sort of radars. If you go into like a CAT scan or something, you can't see it on there. But the skin and the energy around that section of the skin is different. And that is something that if you were what we call a sensitive, the sensitive would be able to, if you know that that's what it looks like, and which is, when you look at it, from my experience, it's like a phasing in and out.
Shall we say a hyperdimensional brand mark?
Yeah, I think
Instead of
that,
thinking,
yeah,
you know, a bit
yeah.
of cowhide being hit with something, you're tagged in some other way.
Yeah, I think that would be, because we've never really given it a name. We just know what it looks like, and we kind of say, well, it's one of the tags. Look for, you know, the phasing in and out of the energetics. We start looking for that on any of the consciousness levels. So, you know, whether it's 3D or we're looking at the bridge of light, which is our term, we call it a light bridge. So that would be then the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. And then those are your bridges. We start scanning through all of those. And when we see that phasing, we know that we've picked up one of the tagged children. And that's what we're seeing.
Could
So
you go
then we
into
know
that? I mean, you must be able to follow that back, trace that back over different worlds and dimensions and universes.
Yeah, we've been very lucky, and we've had a couple of those
I suggest it's
cases.
more than luck.
Oh, I don't know whether it's more than luck. It's just because we've been working on this for so many years. We just know that when we see this just phasing in and out, and it's very sparkly, and you can see this sparkle. You know, we have a joke amongst ourselves. We trace the sparkle. So we trace the sparkle because it's very defined, and there is always a person, a body, somebody at the end of the sparkle. But the sparkle could be here, 3D, in a deep underground base or one of the many bases around the world, same thing. Or it could be 4D or 5D in the light bridges, which is 4D and 5D. And it could be interplanetary, one of the jump areas. It could be in a jump area, because it leaves this like little sparkle trail. And you know that that's one of these children, stamped children, that you're busy tracing. Sometimes they're so far off-world that you know you're never going to be able to get them back. So what we do is we write it up, and then I have a very careful conversation with whoever it is that has given us the brief, and then I explain this is what we've got. We can't really do much more with it because none of us are going off-world, and I don't know any of the off-world crowd that I could say to them, you know, this is one of the children that we've picked up. This is what we've found, and this is what that he or she looks like. Could you see if you can extract them? What we need is a big homey CC extraction team for off-world, and we don't have any access to anything like that.
But you could have access if you had the right technology.
Yes, we could, but I mean, we don't. I personally don't know anybody that is in that realm, sadly.
But there are people in that realm who can do it.
I would imagine there must be, but I'm sure that they have their own processes and protocols and people
You're hiding
that
an awful lot here,
they work
Beverli.
with.
I sense you're hiding. You're hiding.
You think we're hiding? I don't think we're hiding. We're working more with the poor children and young people that are in 3D, that are on the earth plane, who are desperately trying to go home, scared out of their wits, scared for their lives, and really being tortured.
As you say, going home, surely the parents have, not through necessarily any fault, but through family ties, shall we say, have been contracted to donate one of their children or group of the children to other predatory forces, shall we say. I think we're using too many terms dancing around our handbag here. Spell it as it is, or to say it as it is.
Yeah, there are some families that have been told they need to provide or sacrifice one of their children, or give one of their children to whichever one of these organizations or off-world, wherever, in order to be able to continue certain aspects. So those are the cases. Once we realize that is what has happened, we just basically have to say, you know, we can't go further with this, because we know that this is actively been given, absolutely been given by the parents, and they are taking the stance of, oh no, you know, this was nothing to do with us. Myself and my husband were on holiday and we did this and we did that and we never knew anything about it, etc. All of those types of cases, we generally distance ourselves from them. When we all realize, no, this was arranged, this was agreed, terms were arranged and agreed, the swap took place, so we just don't do anything more with those.
I think that's called too hot to handle.
Pretty much, yes, it is.
But
also we know that the person is generally then, they're either not around or they've been dispatched or they've exited off planet and they've been taken somewhere else. You're never going to get that one. Or most of them has been consumed and the bone fragments or any other items are being carefully put into a trophy drawer somewhere through those that participated or consumed part of either the
You're
child.
talking
or
ritual sacrifice, ritual slaughter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And the bottom line is there would be a species, that would be what they do. I mean, there was somebody who heard some Germans talking about babies, and they were very smartly dressed and they looked human, but they were discussing upwards of sets of 80 at a time of these children. And the other person who could understand German spoke German back to them. And they were very pragmatically, the reply was, well, you eat lambs, pigs and cows, we just eat you. And really, there's not much else to say about that, really.
Yeah, they are quite matter of fact, and some of the cases that we've worked on, we kind of have realised that that's what we've come across, because obviously some of the parents where these children have been targeted because of, the way they look or their DNA or what RH level they are out of the 3 RHs. There's really, from our point of view, there's nothing more that we could do apart from explain to the parents that this is as far as we've got. We cannot get any further. And at this stage, we won't be able to work on it more because we are going to come up with a dead end. We are. So it's an unfortunate situation we find. But eventually, I think in time, there will be these crack squads that will be able to, go in and extract children from other places off-world, and not just necessarily those that are here on Earth, because those of us that are fighting against this terrible atrocities undertaken to children and young people, there are groups now that are doing extremely well, and they're able to extract children quicker than we did before. And in some cases, we're able to not only get to the child, get the coordinates, get the proof of life, the POL. Proof of life is done. The area quadrants from those who have that really very honed-in skill of getting the coordinates and a picture drawn of the place, the number, etc. All of those things, the location, how they got to the location. We've got those that are very, very good at pinpointing what method did the perpetrator get the child to that area. Was it a taxi? Was it a bus? Was it a train? Was it late at night on the back of a motorbike tied up? Whatever the situation is. Was it a boat? Many boats that do this sort of thing, going up and down rivers and pitching in different areas. So we are able to pinpoint that. And this is what we do have. We have all of that in place. And we've got, arms across the sea, hands across the sea. And we've got highways of the sea as well, where a child will start in a particular area and we can trace everything through energetics. And if it gets on a boat, we'll be able to check what is the insignia, what does the container look like, what are the first ports that it goes to, what do the people look like, who are the security guards. We get all that. And that's in place now for Earth. What we need desperately is a similar process flow, methodology, standard operating procedure to do the same, to trace those that are being taken off-world. That's what we need.
So this is all about, we hear all these stories about Ukraine and other parts of the world where there's these labs, biolabs, horrendous for instance, a human being completely devoid of all structure, bones and flesh, but their nervous system is intact purely for the purposes of extracting pain and suffering, but they're kept alive in that condition. And a lot of the soldiers or people who've been going down into these tunnels couldn't take it, so they've had to put robots in. Is that true? Have you heard of the term NHCU, non-human cyborg unit?
Yes, absolutely. It's very true. I don't know who's been able to give you that information, but it is accurate information, yes.
Could you go into that, please?
Well, I've only been to a handful, probably a handful and a half worth of bases. And
Well, what do you mean half a base?
a half a base would be short-staffed or staff that have been there for many years. They know their job. They just do their job and go home. And they don't have direct access to all of the layers. They only have access to, say, the top 3 or 4, up to the hospital layer or the theatres, the clinical layer.
How many layers do you have in the hospitals?
I've only seen 3 that have a hospital layer, a floor that is hospitals that do all these different extractions and, experimental operations. And as
Are we talking Delta Force stuff or non-attributable friendly forces?
There's Delta Force, but there's also, remember, we've got Delta Force, which is part of the organised areas, but then we've also got privates. We've got private organisations, what they call commercials. We've got commercial organisations that also have deep bases that are, 5, 6, 7 layers also, but private, commercialised, out for hire, so to speak. So you have them. So you have organised...
Are we talking Jupiter Rising type bases? The movie?
I hadn't seen the movie.
It's a very good movie. It's used bases on Jupiter and the big red spot and stuff. But they're a different type of ET, and it's trading. All different.
The commercial ones,
It's the commercial operations.
Yeah, you're right. It's the commercial ones.
Can you go into all that?
Well, they're the same as the auction house. So the auction house that takes place on the ranch, what we call the ranch, or the planetary.
Just to sort of interject, we had a discussion over coffee here in Devizes, and the access portal to the area that we were describing is an auction house.
It's an auction house, yeah. So that's where
would you suggest there may be something else going on about that you can't talk about because we didn't talk about it, and I'm not saying it?
I think there's a lot more going on in specific auction houses that have different coordinates, and they move across the world because they can. And what they do nowadays is they advertise the auction on the dark web, and there's these mobile phones that are throwaway ones, burner phones, and the individuals then will put up on the screen screens of the children that have been procured, and you'll see them in a room at one of these bases. You'll be able to see them, and they have to do a twirl, and they have very little clothes on, and you'll be able to see exactly what is in the package that you're going to buy. And this part of that is the auction room.
And then we have encrypted television services for people to, of course, when we're dealing with encrypted television services, we're involving the NSA, Ofcom, and the various broadcast organizations who allocate frequencies and codecs for encryption systems and stuff. So they must be fully integrated with these kind of off-world services.
They are, absolutely, they are, and this is why I keep saying our organisation doesn't have that level of access or funding to have an extraction team. We've only got access to an extraction team, a small extraction team that's very, very good at what they do for 3D, this world, globally, because they've got access globally. Very, very well funded, excellent bunch of men.
So at what point do they realise that they're involved with something where they need to do a hands-off?
I think they realise when they start hitting significant interference. So when somebody's running interference all the time, or when 1 or 2 or more of them get attacked with something that is unseen or something that appears, like they could be going out on, watching something. And when they're driving there is not a dog walker in sight. And then suddenly, literally 4 minutes later, they're turning the car around to go back down exactly the same road. And suddenly, there on the side of the road, there's this man in his cap walking his dog with his phone and taking pictures of one of the vehicles driving down the road because they're running a surveillance op at the time.
I have no idea what you're talking about there, Beverli. I don't know what the hell are you on? What are you on?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just had a cup of tea. I think Beverli's had rose hip tea or something. I don't know what she's on
I've
this.
got Rooibos.
Because certainly I would never go off on a rant like this, inferring maybe I'm giving a message to certain people that may be watching. And I don't know what you're talking about. So we both don't know what we're talking about. Shall we talk about something that you do know what you're talking about, for God's sake, Beverli?
Yeah,
There's a bit too much sarcasm here.
That's all right. Sarcasm is always good. It lightens the mood. It did lighten the mood.
So, for those of you, I think the movie Jupiter Rising deals with a lot of this stuff. The point about this is we're not dealing with linear time, are we?
No, we're not.
Do you want to go into all that sort of stuff?
Well, the timeline is very fluid, and it's one of those that we've got a couple of timeline practitioners that are part of the group, and we give them a fixed date of when the child disappeared. And we will ask them to go into that date and tell us everything that they are able to pull out and perceive in that timeline. And then when necessary, bend that timeline and extend it, flatten it, but extend it to see what else is happening around it, wherever. And that's what they'll do. They'll go into that date, let's say the date that the child or the young person disappeared. And they will look the 24-hour period before, the 24-hour period after, and then north, south, west, east, up, down. So they'll extend it into all of the different areas. So north, south, west, east, up and down being all of the other solar systems, galaxies, and
You're going into complex number space. Are we talking about that?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So that's what they do, is they will go back and then they will run that trace of that sparkly that I was talking about, okay? They will take that sparkly for that child on that date, and they will progress that. So in a week later, they'll come back to me, we'll have a meeting, we'll have a report. I will type up everything, say, right, what about this? What about, did you look at this bit? Did you look at that bit? What came back with that? Was there a transference of energy or not? In other words, was the child taken off planet? Yes or no? Very simple. Yes or no? Yes or no? Was it taken to another quadrant here in the world? And what we have is, as part of our methodology, we take areas, whole continents, and we cut them up into quadrants. So we've got a matrix that lies over the whole of America. We've got another one that's on Jamaica. We've got another one that's... Every single continent has its own matrix with its own numbered quadrant that is not the same as any other quadrant anywhere else. So it's alphanumeric, and we can say, right, alphanumeric quadrant number, target fixed there, and then that's how they're able to drill down into that area and look for that particular sparkly bit in those areas. I mean, I've made it sound quite simple, but on a higher level, on that scale, it's more complicated than that. But that, in a nutshell, just quickly, that's kind of what we're doing.
Well, if you want to go complicated, I'm always here. The other thing is, what's the difference between off-world and off-planet?
No, there's no difference. It's just a different term. We just call it off-world because we're all used to saying going off-world. It's the same. Off-world, off-planet, exactly the same, no difference.
Off-planet would infer 3D, solar system or solid, Off-world would maybe infer a complex number of space.
For us, off-world also includes the beings that live, that are not surface dwellers, the ones that are underneath the surface, or the ones that live in the caverns, or the ones that live in the mountains underneath, and all of the all of the other peoples that live underneath the surface, because there are below surface dwellers that are humans and hybrids that are living in different areas. That sometimes, if we're very lucky, will help us if they know anything, because they're aware of what we're doing. So that's why we use the term off-world rather than off-planet.
And there's, I was going to say something there. What is it? Pocket dimensions. That's when you have kind of, for want of a better term, a subspace domain, access to a tiny little part of 3D, but then you go into a whole, I mean, for instance, people being taken in tube trains, they go into a pocket dimension, things happen to them, then they come back out and they're back on the same line and they arrive at the next platform, maybe a picosecond late.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, there are. And there are also those that will end up going into it's sort of like a time shift, and there's been a few of those that have taken place. And those children that are in there or stuck in there, we're not able yet to extract them from the, if we know that they're in a different timeline, and that's where the timeline practitioners work, and then they're able to say, no, this particular child is there.
Like a gully trap?
Yeah, they're constantly in a different trap, and they just can't seem to get out and come back to us in this area. And we are the remote viewers that just find the intel and pass it on to whoever it is that's going to do the next bit. So we'll just pass those sort of things. We pass them on, and then we just close that target down.
And that's because, I mean, this is one of the things which, to quote a lady, Solaris Blue Raven was being targeted by a rock band, a Canadian rock band. And this is 20 years, a long time ago now. But she was able to get back at those who were doing the targeting. I mean, how do your remote viewers and your investigation team protect themselves from being reverse attacked, so to speak?
Most of the viewers that I've been working with, they've also been sort of doing this work surreptitiously as well as their day job. They have their own protocols that they do before we start our work on a Friday. So they all protect themselves, and everybody has their own way of doing things, whatever works for them. I'm not like the CIA that lays down the law. You have to do it this way, and that's the only way that you're going to protect yourself. We all, however, have a secondary base that we will go to if we know that we've been seen. Even myself, I do that as well. A couple of times someone has actually seen me and then tried to follow me, which was not great. So what I'll do is when I co-locate, I will locate myself somewhere else, and I'll stay there at that venue until such time as the danger is past, and then I'll go back to where my body is situated. So we all do that. That's just common part of the practice.
Right, we've been running an hour on this. Do you want to pause briefly?
Yeah, let's pause briefly. I'm running out of tea.
And so the point about this is that we've been covering a lot of areas involving the remote viewing and a lot of the countermeasures that are happening, and we are dealing with a multifaceted world. So we are dealing with a disclosure situation in terms of this is an everyday situation, human trafficking, child abuse, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that goes into multi-dimensional realms and timelines.
Yes.
So that could be one reason why they don't want to tell us about this. Do you think?
I think it's one of the many reasons why the individual societies and organizations are not happy that, a level of disclosure comes out, because, they will not really be able to explain it fully and be able to articulate what is happening and why it is happening, and the countermeasures that they have put in place, which some of them are not working. And I think that would then show on their part a level of irresponsibility, but also the level within some of the organizations that they don't always quite know what they're working with.
And since the CIA have decided to take control of the UFO narrative since this whole thing started 1947 and Forrestal being bumped off and all that kind of things which happened after the Roswell sort of thing, even though there was lots of landings that we all knew about in the 40s, 30s and all that sort of stuff. But the CIA have decided to put their name on this with extreme, it's our business. So that would say that the CIA is a bit of trouble on this.
It is probable. I mean, I have received many requests from three-letter agencies to work with them, but they don't pay their bills, and they're not prepared to offer anything or any financial assistance or any technical assistance or premises or anything that would be good to have if you're trying to help at that level. So basically, the Remote Viewing Alliance, on behalf of them, I just said no. We're not prepared to help the three-letter agencies because they're not prepared to help us and set us up as a separate organization that will help all three-letter agencies, not just American, but all over the world. And that's why we distance ourselves from them, because we said, we are bona fide. We've been doing this. We have a very good track record doing it our way, which is manual, really, if you think about it. I mean, we don't have huge equipment. Everybody has their own laptops. They have their own phones. Everybody is self-funding. Nobody gets any money for anything. We don't have, like, an office anywhere. We don't have a building anywhere. We're just basically doing the work as best we can as volunteers. And until such time as an agency decides, well, actually, this group of individuals are good enough for us to take seriously and possibly fund an office and do something along those lines and be open, transparent, and share everything, which is what one of our agreements amongst ourselves is. We are always totally transparent. If we're working on a case, anybody, including the victim's parents, and I've done this many times, I've said, come and join us on Friday, meet everybody. Everybody has a code name. Nobody is on screen in their real names. And come and meet everybody, speak to everybody. If they've got questions, allow them to ask you questions about your child or your young person. We're open. Come and see us. That Zoom link is a well-known Zoom link. If you want to pop in and see what we're doing, that's it. It's transparent. We're not hiding anything because we don't have anything to hide. And unless they're happy for us to do that, we're not going to be running a clandestine operation. We're not going to be doing that. Whatever we do is open. This is how we're doing it. These are the protocols. This is what we stand by. This is how we work. It's open, honest, transparent. And until such time as the agencies agree that this is the way, that they're happy to work on our terms, it's unlikely that we'll be working with them.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is the accountants will say it, the politicians will say it, the people in the media will say it. And since all those relevant areas are rotten to the core, they wouldn't want to be involved because that would expose them, I'm suggesting.
Well, there's some media that's been very favourable. One of the big cases, international case that we worked on, where there was a collaboration between one of the big remote viewing Canadian organisations with Sebastian and everyone in the UK and America, with a big case we're working on with the police, who were extremely cooperative and absolutely loved everything we were doing. They got the main media, the TV station involved. And this TV station covered everything as we were doing it. And that was broadcast and went out. And it's now become a really well-known case with SASCO. And everything that we were doing, it was done in real time. They were filming what we were doing, how we were doing it, talking to Canada, talking to America, all of the different participants. It was really good to show that no matter what country you were in, we were all working for the same greater good for the young lad that disappeared in Bulgaria, and his name, the case was called the SASCO case, and that was very successful. He was found, and he exactly in the state and condition that we had him in, and the police utilised everything we were saying and acted immediately on all the information that we had, And that is why he was found safe. He was alive, very dehydrated. They took him to the hospital, and he was repatriated to his parents, and that was it. So, you know, it can be done, because there are cases that we've worked on where we've all worked together, because our focus was the energy of the child. And if that remains the focus, then we can save these children. We can do it because we've done it. We have a track record of it.
Well, I'm going to say the word managed opposition there, and I think that's enough for now on this particular subject. We're going to take a break, and we're going to do a sort of a roundup in a few moments, and that's it for now. Remember, Beverli is attending and going to give a major presentation for 90 minutes at the Disclosure International Basis 2025 Disclosure in December 12th, 13th, and 14th. Well, we've been recording 2 sessions here in the last couple of days with Beverli, and I'm not even having a proper bait. I'm having a cup of coffee. What we've done is we've talked about the secret space program, the NAFTA, but not too much in detail there. We've talked about the 20 and return program, and a very detailed part there on remote viewing. And we were dancing around our handbags on this because there were certain cases which we both knew about that can't be talked about in public. And this, Beverli, oh God, the TV.
Oh, it did it. It did it. He did it again.
No, it's a timeout on the, so you don't burn the screen. And this, Beverli, this is the crux in this last 15 odd minutes on this day, on the 5th of November, 2025. Disclosure. Now, we got a bunch of clowns in the United States calling this UAP. The point about it is that they're doing a thing to Congress, and in this country we've got MPs, and without pushing the boat out too far, all of those with a small a, because big A would mean everything all, so we're dealing with the collective term all, in other words, a bloody lot of them, are compromised with the child abuse, Keys of Solomon type of situation, which leads to your customers, these kind of, not your customers, but the kind of people that you are dealing with, creatures, essentially meaning our entire governmental processes across the world are compromised by non-local, again, that's another term, just call them ETs or extra-dimensionals. In other words, our entire governmental structures on the planet, including the kings and the so-called democratically elected and non-democratically elected parliaments, are all dealing with enemies of humanity. So, that's a Tim Refat so. Sometimes I do that as a little bit of a little mention about Tim Refat, who doesn't like celebrities and banking type people in certain places. The reason why I mentioned Tim Refat was he was Mr. Magic Man who followed Colin Bloy in MI6, and he did a lot of stuff with on remote viewing. He did a very important book on remote viewing, which featured a lot of Russian declassified documents by Tim Refat from Russia, and that was published in the year 2000. That's a very good book on remote viewing. How are we going to solve this problem with all these government agencies who run the planet, including the military? Because the military do not fight for individual countries. They're told what to do, so they would operate on those others who are controlling interests. And then sometimes they run out of money, which suddenly means they have a peace process in Gaza. And I told you not to mention Kimberly Coogan. Does that strike a bell? No?
No, not really.
Okay. She's saying that she's in. Well, that's just another thing. Again, it's another mix in this so-called disclosure thing. So, how would you, based on your experience and the 60 years you've had in the 20 and return program, you're looking very young for 120 or something.
Yeah, luckily.
Yeah.
At least the last time they brought me back, I was brought back properly and not sort of partially or in bits, which is also what happens sometimes.
Okay, could you explain that being brought back in bits? I'm meant to be on camera could you explain that about what being brought back in bits means exactly?
I think it was.
And how do they knit you together?
I think it was. I don't know how the process is. I only can talk about what I did.
Yes, that's what I would prefer. What's your experience?
When I was asked my very last time in 2005, when I was asked would I like to do the 20 years, but then when I finished that 20-year cycle, which was in the progress timeline to 2025, which is this year, I'm getting up to the point, I've actually passed the point of when I was returned, which was in August 17th. And that particular one was, I was asked to do another 20 years, which would have meant I would have just stayed and continued for another 20 years. So you can do 20 years return, or you can do 20 years, agree for your next 20. So theoretically, time, it would be 40 years and returned. And I said, no, thank you. I would like to have some of my own life under my terms and live my life my way. But I was then taken and into the one room that you go into and you decide whether you're going to stay or go back. You then give part of your own blood and you make your particular contract to go back. You put your hands inside a machine. They read the veinology, the vein print, so the veins on the top of the hands for humans, and they take those as the print, and then they start rebuilding you to age regress you back to the time that I was removed, which was 2005. In that particular month, in July, no, actually it was August. July, we'd started the discussions. August, then I was moved and switched. And that was it. So they then take you back to exactly what you were. In that particular case, I was on a theatre table in a hospital, and that was when the switch took place. So I was taken back to exactly that particular time frame. And then I woke up because I didn't have enough anesthetic in my body. And I jumped off the operating table with my bottom hanging out of that delightful gown and ran out of the theatre and ran upstairs, bottom showing to everybody, very embarrassing, talking a lot of nonsense. And they then took me back down to the theatre room. And that was the return, because my body obviously was not the same body that had been returned. It had done the old switcheroo back on the theatre table. I never lived that one down with my bottom going up the stairs. Good Lord, Maisie, that's terrible. But yeah, so sometimes when you come back, there are bits that are not exactly the same. So when I was removed, obviously I was going through an operation, a theatre procedure. I had had enough anesthetic, they say. The doctors that were working on me said I'd had enough anesthetic to basically put a very big cart horse or an elephant to sleep. So they did not know how it was possible for this person to jump off the operating table, unhook myself and run up the stairs. That's what happens sometimes. And it's a funny story. I laugh about it now, but it was not very nice at the time, because I ended up being sick and vomiting and shaking and collapsing. And this was all part of the return. And in some cases, earlier years, before they'd perfected that age regression technology to get you back to exactly that time frame, they hadn't perfected it totally, and sometimes there's bits that were missing. And I do know there are a few people that would have come back and would have had terrible consequences for them. And those that are partially returned or returned and then become very ill afterwards because parts are not vibrating at the same level, and they end up either getting very ill, developing a sickness and then, passing out completely and removing themselves from the planet. In other words, exiting or passing away.
Would
That
they
has
fade
happened.
away? Would they literally fade away into a different reality or go back to where they came from? A bit like the Philadelphia experiment that went wrong.
It's possible that it is possible that in the older times, 40 years or 50, 60 years ago, it might have been. I think that the Max Michael person that I know of that case particularly well. I think that happened.
You're talking about
with
Max
him.
Spears.
Yes, I think Max Spears.
But why don't you
the
talk
Michael.
about that?
I think that might have been what happened with him, because I think when he went through the process,
We're talking about when he was
taken off world.
We're talking about Poland, or
Yeah, I don't know what country it was. I just know that
well, he
his
died
case-
in Poland, and he started vomiting black stuff.
Yeah,
But
well, that would be it.
They returned him then,
That would
and
be
it didn't work properly.
No, it didn't. And I think that's where the glitches in the system, and that's where the issues happen. Luckily
So just to
for
make
me,
this very clear, okay, Max died in Holland, in Poland, and he said on the final recorded interview, which they didn't have on Vision, that he had gone. He said he was gone, and then he came back, and then they showed him being on a trampoline to bring his body back into, so he would bounce up and down, and that would to gently reanimate the body properly, right? Then a couple of days later, he was on Monica Duval's sofa. He was vomiting this dark fluid. People say black goo. It wasn't that. I postulate that he hadn't been properly brought back, so he was necrophying for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, from
and
the
he was
inside
throwing
out.
up his rotting body out of him whilst he was still in it. He then died, and then 4 or 5 hours later, they wanted to bring him back for the second time, and that didn't work. And that's when Stuart Sverdlow was involved on his website saying, certainly researcher, i.e. me, that was the only time it went public about him trying to be brought back 5 hours later, 6 hours later, 10 o'clock at night.
really awful.
So the point is, you're saying that he had gone back before that, a long time ago.
I think he had, yes, and I think that there was that disassociation, and the issue with lining up the cellular regeneration that needs to take place. And I think that because the technology, even then, I mean, it goes in leaps and bounds. Literally every hour there are new changes, advancements, etc. And I think that because of when that was, it hadn't really been totally perfected, and I think that was.
So when are you
unfortunate
talking
for him.
about in linear time here?
I think about 10, 12 years ago, so that would have been.
Well, he's been officially dead for the second time in Poland. This is his 10th year, so it would be July. Well, 2025. He died in 2020. No, he died in 2016.
16, yeah.
So he's into the. So where are we with this? So you noticed him from a different operational standpoint.
Yes, 2025. Sorry, 2005. So 2005.
And he was, because he's that knowledge has only sort of come forward to part of the James Casbolt, Duncan Davis team, along with Sohail. Sohail had been talking to Max Spears way back around 2005 and under a different name.
Michael, yeah, with Sohail. Yeah, I would imagine that would have been that particular.
Well, no, it wasn't his name. Sohail is the guy who involved with James Casbolt and Duncan Davis, who had to have something taken out of his back.
His spine.
That's another bloody complicated thing. The point is that they were involved. They were involved with Peasmore.
In the village.
Yeah, the underground base there, where
the
they
village.
do the Chimera type program generated life forms thing, connected with a whole pile of other things. That isn't basis 1. And part of basis 1 also has this lovely lady called Sophia, who was born in South African baby farms, which is why we're connecting with you on that.
Okay. Yeah.
On this brief bit.
You've definitely assembled some of the lightest and brightest individuals that have never talked out before. So, we're all speaking out now, and you're the catalyst for this, which is amazing.
So where, finally, next time we're going to see you, well, maybe if you can come down between now and December. Now you know the way.
Yeah, 6 hours later.
And even missing signposts for hotels.
Yeah, exactly. Lord.
Yes. So your last words on this for now?
Last words on this is keep an open mind. Don't just accept everything at face value. Ask questions. Ask as many questions as you need, because you'll get to the final answers and you'll eventually get to some semblance of the truth. But there is a lot more that is still needed to come forward. There's a lot more disclosure that needs to come out, because there are individuals that are sitting with locked up information that are not ready yet to share that information. And I think the more we pressurize, the more we go after the truth is out there. Just go and find it.
Well, as they say, until the next exciting episode, we'll see Beverli say goodbye.
Goodbye to everyone, and I hope to see you at the conference. Come up and say hello, ask questions. I always like taking questions from everyone. Have a good one.
Good. And that is that. Off to Swansea I have to go.
Okay.